Welcome once again to the Black Dimension. My name is Kev, and with me are the other two innovators of the Black Dimension, Donnie and Roger. Say hello, fellas.
Hello, fellas.
All right, cool. We are here again to discuss some MCU news and more Spider-Man. Uh, as reported weeks ago, there had been some there had been some rumors that went public that the deal with Sony and Disney was off, and Spider-Man was being pulled from the MCU. And ever since then, it's just been a roller coaster of info, rumors, news reports, fake news reports, newsworthy news reports. And the latest in all of this is um, the MCU might be getting Spidey back by default anyway. It seems that Sony's movie division isn't doing too good and may be up for purchase. And we've heard everything from Amazon, but uh, lately we got a report that Apple is possibly in contingency to buy Sony. If that happens, if okay, just like with the Fox deal, when they own the X Men and the Fantastic Four, if any company purchases Sony like what happened to Fox, then that means that the Marvel characters will go back to Disney by and Marvel by default. So, Roger, do you have any insight on this, sir? I know
Yeah,
you do.
yeah. Well, that's how I've always argued that Sony doesn't have any leverage when talking to Marvel. And I know you have people that's been taking it like, well, Disney's kind of right, but then people been saying, well, Sony's kind of right, and they believe things are being the prices that are being mentioned are too much. Now, I have heard that Sony has asked for 10 billion for Spider-Man outright, which of course Disney didn't want to do, and I don't see why they would do it because if somehow Sony loses its company as far as the movie division goes, and they have to be sold off or they get closed down, all the rights they have to the Spider-Man character immediately revert back to Marvel. So Marvel, and they don't have to pay a dime. They can take Spider-Man back that they've developed and made a great character. It's only a smart move to make. Now, we've heard reports that it's been that Marvel tried to do a 50-50 with Sony, and they've also tried a 70-30 with Sony, and there's reports that Sony turned both of those deals down. I totally understand why Marvel isn't doing anything because if I'm gonna get my rights back for free, ain't no point in me paying you anything. So, you can take this 50-50 or even this 70-30 because you're struggling at the end of the day. The fans don't trust you when it comes to Spider-Man because everything's about money generated from the fans, and us as fans, we simply don't trust Sony when it comes to a live action Spider-Man movie. We don't trust him anymore, and we've enjoyed Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and we want to see his story play out. So, in my personal opinion, Sony doesn't have any real leverage as it is. I can understand them trying to hold on to Spider-Man because what is that really going to even do? They don't have any other big they don't really have any other big thing going on with Sony that I can even think of off the top of my head. Like, what's their next biggest property? Does anybody even
The
know?
Matrix.
Is
Uh,
it?
they they own another sci-fi trilogy. I just can't think of what it is.
Yeah. And, okay. And like they talking about doing another Matrix movie, but a Matrix movie ain't came out in over a decade.
Hmm.
So Sony been struggling. And I'm just saying, me personally, it's like being in a fight. If I'm fighting you and I already got you down to the ground, and all I know if I just keep hitting you in the face, I'm about to knock you out. I'm not going to change my positioning at all. I'm really not.
But let me ask you a question though. When did the faith get lost in Spider-Man films and Sony?
Uh,
At what exact point did you think that happened?
so for me in particular, I felt like Sony was well past screwing up at Spider-Man 3. When I say Spider-Man 3, I'm in reference to Sam Raimi's edition of Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. And he had 75,000 villains in the movie, and Eddie brought Venom.
Hmm.
That's when Sony let me down in terms of movies for Spider-Man.
Because the first Spider-Man to me was a great film. The second one to me was even better. The third one just hit the bottom like a fucking rock. Oh, excuse my language. By the way, it was the main. I think the biggest thing that really disappointed me with that film is how they handled Venom. Um, then just from a casting aspect and from the way just the way they did the character all together, it was all around disappointing. I was okay with the Sandman, but Venom, no, I wasn't.
That movie was on
I
all
thought
week for me. Every time I turned on the TV, that movie just seemed to pop up. Um, that movie was horrible. Like, let me say this: that Spider-Man was great for the time, but it does not hold up in any way, shape, or form today. But
Yeah,
that
that's a good
movie,
way to say it. That's a good way to say it.
Spider-Man 3, was the worst out of all of them in every way, shape, and form. Like, if you look back to it, he used to put the Spider-Man suit on when it was the Venom costume. So the Venom suit was affecting him, and he had it locked away in the chest. It wasn't some weird, creepy entity that kind of creeped over to him and he couldn't get off. This was a suit he could take on and off at will. He just chose not to.
Yeah, the way they did Venom in that movie is just really terrible. But I even tried to hold on with him with the Andrew Garfield one, but I don't like the way they did. They had Jamie Foxx looking in that movie. That was that CGI and everything was kind of bad. And honestly, with the changing of the time, once you now have to compete with this other universe with where these other heroes are together and doing stuff, to me it took like the draw away from a solo Spider-Man movie. I'm not saying a solo Spider-Man movie can be good, but now I have to compare it to these other movies where I got multiple superheroes in it. So it's like, how can I enjoy that all that much when you got this happening on the other side of the fence with these multiple superheroes, and then when you had DC starting it, even though their universe hasn't gone as well, I love the start of their universe. Superman was actually my favorite superhero growing up. I actually love Man of Steel. And even though DC kind of mishandled the way they were doing things with their superheroes, in today's world, to me, a solo Spider-Man just can't really compare. It can't compete.
I personally think that Sony was dumb as a box of rocks when they decided to pull away Spider-Man from the Marvel Cinematic Universe in order to create the Venomverse, or make the Venomverse hold, should I say, with Spider-Man. Because all they had to do was ride the wave. All they had to do was ride the wave. If you knew that your studio, your entertainment division is in dire straits, collect the check and and just close your mouth. I'll say the PC version. Collect the check and just close your mouth.
We're gonna use our
okay,
imagination to figure out how you really feel.
but 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 I will say this: trying to make Spider Verse characters without Spider Man, you're kind of painting yourself into a corner. I mean, they barely scraped by with Venom. I think what I think what made the first Venom film work was the fact that people were craving to see a Venom done closer to what the comic book was than what they got with Topher Grace and Spider-Man 3.
That's how they ran Spider-Man 1. If you Spider-Man 1, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man wasn't no great film if you look at it today. But what did we have before that? What Spider-Man did we have before that movie? None. We had some made for
Man,
TV nonsense where he was shooting metal
we
cables.
had Yeah, well, we had that Spider-Man show back in the 70s.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's the he had a made for TV movie where he got shot 10 minutes into the movie. He was limping the whole movie. So what is this?
You know what
But
though?
but
I'm,
but
I'm
but they did have a short-lived TV show though. It was an episodic television show, but it was a very short run. I think it only lasted one season. Um, but I know what movie you're talking about. In fact, I think they made a couple of movies
Yeah,
because I mean, because it was just like this. People like with the level of the budget and the level of effects you had, people were just probably happy to see somebody running around in a weird spandex suit call themselves Spider Man.
with that,
Just
but
like
remember
the rain.
we had the Hulk. You remember the Hulk with Bruce Banner, not David.
Oh,
Or
oh
David Banner, should I say
no,
that?
it
It
was
was
it was
David Banner.
David Banner.
Yeah, David Banner.
yeah.
It was David
Remember you
Banner.
had him, but he hooked up with Thor.
And that
You
movie
remember
was
Oh
that
trash.
man.
That movie was
movie?
trash. I'm
Oh
sorry,
man.
but
But you
I
got to
mean,
think that movie was on TV. It was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if you go back and watch it now, you're like, ooh.
well, yeah. But you know what? Yeah, we
uh,
did enjoy that Hulk television show. But honestly, this is just my perception. I think because of what has happened with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think Venom was a success due to curiosity. The same way I think Fantastic Four pulled in some pretty decent numbers, even though people didn't really like the movie like that. As far as the critics and what we know about what the public's been saying, people didn't really like the movie. But I think it was just that is this going to be a part of the MCU? You know what I'm saying? Is somehow this going to be affected by these other movies? I think people were kind of curious to see what you can do outside of the MCU with Marvel characters. That's my personal belief. Because I saw the movies, but I saw them like one time, and that was it. I had enough. I didn't think Venom was good enough to go back to the movie and see again. Like I didn't feel that about it at all.
I
You know,
think I
yeah,
think
it did feel.
Venom had the name, the MCU name attached to it. It was a Venom movie which people were starved to see, and they wanted the possibility. You already had the Marvel name attached to it. You're gonna go, okay, well, are we gonna see Spider Man? Oh yeah, it's Venom. But Venom wasn't even Venom. Like what really was Venom in the movie? He was just a space monster. Is that what we can
yeah,
classify
yeah,
him?
yeah.
Because Venom in the comic books had spider-like powers, but they were based on being attached to Spider-Man and emulating his powers. In this movie, he
Well,
was a space monster. He was just
Well,
eating
I
people.
mean,
well,
yeah, honestly,
well,
he
well,
was.
well. Actually, in the comic book, Spider-Man got the black costume, which turned out to be the Venom symbiote during the Secret Wars
Secret
story
War.
arc.
Yeah, Secret War. So he was looking for a new suit. He got the suit bonded to him, but the suit, when he got back home, the suit ended up being evil and messing with him. But when he got rid of the suit left his body and it attached himself to Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock had spider-like powers.
Well, you know what
Yeah,
though? My
because
thing is, I'm cool with them making certain variations from comic books to the movies because I even saw Stan Lee in the interview talking about how you gotta kind of change some things when you go from one form of media to a different form. So I'm kind of okay with they was trying to change a little bit, but I'm saying even overall as a movie, did it really satisfy me as a moviegoer? It was like it's cool, it's alright. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't. There was no pull for me to really want to see this again or to even see a sequel. There was no pull. Like I wasn't really worried about if Venom was going to be a sequel or not. I really didn't care.
well,
I thought it
uh,
was a
uh, I, I thought it was. Let me put it like this: Venom was better than I thought it would be. I knew without Marvel's influence that the character probably wouldn't be that great because it was like a reboot of the character from what they made before. But I would just say this: it was better than I thought it would be. and that's not saying much because I was disappointed that they used a symbiote riot. If they wanted to go with some first Venom outing, they should have did it correctly. They should have had him happen through Spider-Man. To me, that's the one part that just did not make any sense. That way, you could have gave Venom actually more powers. He would have been more powerful going through Spider-Man first, because when the symbiote left, when the symbiote was separate from Peter Parker, the imprint of Spider-Man's powers was still with the symbiote, and plus he knew everything about Spider-Man. He could block his spider sense, all that stuff. He could produce web, and he had plus I think that Venom is kind of slightly stronger than Spider-Man, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when he
But
had
I
that shit
think,
on him twice the strength at the
yeah.
very least.
So what I think is just like this, and just like with this upcoming film, which we're about to talk about in a second, I think that Sony should have just played ball with Marvel and let them do Venom, because I think Venom's gonna end up with the MCU anyway. And when Venom hits the MCU, the character is gonna go up at least 5 or 6 times greater.
Well,
I mean,
I don't even want you to see it like that. I'm pretty sure they're gonna end up rebooting Venom for the MCU because Sony is really trying to put that Venom they have now into the MCU. But my thing is, it's not gonna work because you can't have a separate studio making Spider-Man stories while you got the MCU going on and then try to say they're connected. That doesn't work. It works for Sony because they feel they're able to make money, but the only reason the MCU has been so successful is because you had Kevin Feige at the head of it, steering the direction of the ship. Because everything that's every other studio that's been trying to get a cinematic universe off the ground has been struggling because they have not had one head. Because DC should be a better cinematic universe than Marvel. It should have been.
oh, I wouldn't say that. I would say that it's better than than it's representing right now.
It
It
should have been
should
an
be much
easier.
better than that.
The DC universe should have been an easier adaptation than the Marvel universe. Marvel has gone into. I want to cuss so bad. Marvel has gone in outer space. Marvel has gone and included Blade, Iron Man, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor. They've put a huge dedication together, and they're also about to include X-Men and everything else. DC has metahumans, a little bit of space, and really like most of their space characters are all fixated on Earth for the most part. Like there's no real like deep space stories. I mean there are, but they're not real huge like that. And you got, what do they call them? Metahumans. DC should really be the easier universe to put on screen.
And you know what?
And
And
you
I'm
know what?
saying that even with the fact that before 2008 and this Marvel Cinematic Universe even kicked off, I know Spider-Man is the top superhero, but 2, 3, and 4 is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So it should have been easy. You know what I'm saying? Just even off popularity reasons that DC should be better than Marvel.
I mean, it, yeah, Batman has a lot of cinematic effects because he's blowing stuff up, and he's got some catchy gizmos, but he's a human person, so anything they can do can all be movie magic and is easily done. You got to have Captain Marvel flying around all the time. The majority of what Batman does is run around in the shadows. Bat Putting out a decent Batman movie should have been easy.
Yeah,
Easy, easy, easy. Yet
because
No,
they
no,
he's
no,
a
no.
relatable
What they
character.
should have did, the DCEU would have been okay if they would have been able to pull off Batman versus Superman. You have two of the most iconic superheroes in history on the big screen for the first time ever, and you blew it. I think that was the nail in the coffin. I mean, not exactly a nail in the coffin because it put the DC extended universe into one shot hell. I mean, and So far, so good, I must say. Shazam, Wonder Woman, Aquaman.
Yeah, those were three great
Um,
films.
Well, you know what?
yeah, but that's it.
That's why I think they should have a soft reboot. They get themselves a Flashpoint type situation under J.J. Abrams' direction, and you've got somewhere to go at this point. You can soft reboot Batman. Hey, listen, I know this is the Batman y'all saw, but because of the events that happened in this movie, this Batman's a little bit different. Let me tell you about him.
Right, and it's an easy workable story. But this is my point though. At the end of the day, Marvel has had that one head guy in charge with a vision, and other people come in with their creativity, but they fit into his vision. And because other studios have not had that, they have not been able to duplicate the success that Marvel has. Marvel has comic book guys running comic book stuff, and other companies didn't do that. They just had suits running stuff. You got to get
This
a comic book people, you know what I'm saying, a chance to do their passion. That they're coming with people for a reason.
what kills
You know,
me is you have all these studios who can make a television series run. Television series would be what, 7, 8, 9 seasons long, and somehow they find a reason to culminate everything that's happened in the season and make it go in continuity and bring out different surprises and secrets. Why can't you have that happen for a series of movies? Like it baffles me.
yeah.
Yeah, I get that a lot more goes into a movie, but if you have a team of people and a person overhead, it shouldn't be that much of an issue.
And let me tell you something about the MCU. With the Disney Plus streaming service coming out, they're about to get even deeper into it. It's gone from a lot of story to basically it's gonna be so much story. It's gonna get to the point where it's gonna be as numerous as comic book issues. That's what it's gonna do. But that's how much they care about their product. That's how much they
Yeah.
care about the stories they are developing, and the universe just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Hey,
And
You know,
who wins through all of that? The fans. But see, that put DC so far behind them. I mean, imagine if and this was I remember like fans wanted Grant Gustin. You know who Grant Gustin is, right? He's the guy
right.
that plays the
the
Flash
Flash.
in the Arrowverse. Yeah, the fans were demanding that he cross over into the films as the Flash, but of course, they went with Ezra Miller.
Which wasn't a bad
So,
choice. I like him as a Flash as well.
He ain't
Wasn't bad.
Flash no more. They finna move him out of there.
what Ezra Miller's about to be? They about to recast.
There's a whole bunch of issues with his adaptation of the Flash, to where they've rewritten it a few times. Basically, Batman, Flash, and possibly Cyborg are having huge issues, and we're stuck at an impasse.
They need to get that together. They can't afford another bad movie. Real talk.
All right, they can't. Speaking of somebody who can't afford a dead movie, let's move back to Sony. Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you both a question. What is your anticipation level for Morbius?
I got
This is
zero.
this is Morbius starring Jared Leto is Morbius. Jared Leto, who played the Joker in the DC extended universe, um, and he played in some other stuff too. Yeah, but he's a real famous actor, real famous.
So
Um,
Jared Leto, I'm a fan of. Um, I'm also a fan of the character of Morbius. However, this movie, I'm not expecting. I'm
Man,
just not.
I got zero anticipation for this movie. I'm just keeping it real. Just because it's a comic book movie doesn't mean I'm gonna anticipate going to see it because I still like quality in the movie, you know, and I want more of that the format that Marvel has been doing with their movies, where they make a good movie and put superhero stuff in it. Because I think that's what kind of helped out the Like the last Aquaman movie was really good because that was like a good movie, but you had some superhero stuff in it. Versus making a superhero movie, you know, people got to understand. I want a nice package when I give you my money. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming at I'm trying to spend 2 hours or so in this fantasy world. I want it to be I want it to take me away from what's going on in real life. You know, I want to enjoy myself. So I want a good story. You know, I want some good action because I'm a dude. You know what I'm saying? So you know how us dudes we like action. Yeah, I want the action, but I want a good storyline too. Real talk.
Yeah, and Morbius is a character they've been trying to do ever since the Sam Raimi Spider-Man series. In fact, if correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Morbius supposed to be one of the characters in Spider-Man 4? Like the planned
I,
Spider-Man 4.
that Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4 was supposed to be off the chain. So I don't really know. I've heard all kind of things, but apparently the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4 was supposed to be lit. Obviously, it never went through, but um, I Morbius wasn't one I heard unless he was part of the Sinister Six. But I mean, it could be.
Well, I did hear that they were going the same thing. They were trying to go in the direction of the Sinister Six. And honestly, my perception of the Sinister Six now, and this may be because of the time and how movies have been put out. The Sinister Six is such a big thing when it comes to Spider-Man. So if you're doing a Spider-Man solo thing, I felt like you should build up to the Sinister Six, the way kind of the way Marvel built up to the Avengers. You know, any particular one of them. But I think they should have just kind of built it up to it, not try to push it all right away. It's Spider
Yeah.
Man, like people like him. You know what I mean? It's not like what I'm saying. If you're not really putting out bad movies, people would have just kept coming. Yeah.
But here's one problem I see with Sony. I think what they're doing is they're doing Spider Verse characters now to try to find a legitimate way to keep Spider Man in Sony. Plus, they're trying to go for some cash grabs. Um,
Yeah,
they're
that's
making a
definitely the
mistake
name
with
of the
this.
game.
They're making a mistake with this. I think they want Spider Man back with them to erase these mistakes right here. If Morbius bombs, that's the nail in the coffin for Sony, period.
Well, I hope Morbius bomb. That's all I can tell you. But
Morbius is going to bomb for the simple fact that they don't have the Marvel attachment to it.
well, you know what? I At this point, you know what I'm saying. I actually thought about this a little bit, and I actually want the MCU to just kind of be jerks at this particular point. Now we know Tom Holland has two more movies on his contract. You know what I'm saying? Regardless if Sony gets back with Marvel or not, he's got two more on his contract to do um, Spider-Man movies. Because Marvel has already sold the rights to do Spider-Man movies, just to be absolute jerks. And y'all tell me how y'all feel about this idea. Okay, let's say Sony go about their mission. They're gonna keep Tom Holland working doing these two movies as they want to. Well, Tom Holland's already cool with the MCU, and he likes being involved with the MCU. He said those people have treated him like family, so he cool with them all. Now, I even heard that there's some type of loophole where they might be able to do these Spider-Man television shows because of streaming services or something like that. So Sony may be able to do their own streaming services when it comes to these television shows, and that's why they got these rumors about these TV shows that they're going to do. But my thing is, well, Marvel hasn't sold the right to do streaming television shows. So if you can do a stream show that you never sold the right to, what I would do, I go holler at Tom Holland, even if he's doing his movies with Sony. You know what I'm saying? They can't do it the exact way because they don't have access to none of the other MCU stuff. I would take that same MCU Tom Holland and start making TV shows until Sony just flops altogether. What they now have to compete with Tom Holland doing Marvel projects while they're trying to push their Sony stuff that ain't gonna in no way connect, and people gonna be able to easily see how these ain't have nothing to do with each other. Because this one version of Spider-Man ain't nothing like that other version of Spider-Man, even though it's the same character.
And
Now,
the hype behind Tom Holland, it would work.
now that's a real jerk
It,
move. But it'd be
I
nice to
just
see.
for this shit.
In my
I,
opinion, it'd be nice to see what y'all think how that'll go down.
they would just be mad at me because I would take my Tony Stark costume away. You can't have none of this. Y'all go ahead and figure that out, and then go from there. I would just take the bare essentials over. Listen, you can create this movie you want to. Don't mention Tony Stark. Uh, don't mention the events of the snap. Don't mention.
Yeah, I don't
Have
think they
no.
can. I
Don't
don't think they
mention.
can.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like Sony probably was able to get them to play a little bit of ball, so where they may not mention everything, but there's you got to do a lot of rewriting if you can't have a Tony Stark outfit because everybody know his two costumes are Tony Stark costumes. Period. Point blank. Other than the Iron Spider,
No,
so
it's
you
three
can't
of
even
them.
have those.
Well, I mean, technically,
It,
the only suit that they'd be able to keep, and this rumor is true. Now, this rumor I heard makes some sense, and it was a rumor that whatever they created during Spider-Man: Homecoming and Far From Home, if it originated in that series, then Sony would be able to take it and keep using it. But if it didn't originate in that series, then they can't use it. So Tony Stark didn't originate in that series, which means the Tony Stark connection is dead in the water. Ain't nothing you can do with it. The only thing that they can keep is, I mean, technically they can keep the other students because they originated in that Spider-Man film, like Ned and
You keep them Ned
they
Flash, but
originated.
you can't you can't you can mention Mysterio, but you can't quite mention the circumstances of Mysterio.
Right. And you couldn't even get Aunt May because technically Aunt May did not originate in Homecoming. She originated in Captain America: Civil War.
Or where was Aunt May in Cap Civil War?
Marissa Tomei, remember when Tony Stark he when Peter Parker first met Tony Stark,
Well,
they did
no,
it at his apartment.
Aunt, Aunt May's a classic character, so I don't think.
But you can't use Marissa Tomei Aunt May. You have to get
Mm,
another.
huh. Well, damn.
You see,
hey, but it's funny you should mention a TV show
mm-hmm.
because being super petty, if they did make a Tom Holland Spider-Man based TV show, and Sony just decided, like, for some reason, Sony just like, no, we're gonna use Spider-Man in films. Fuck you. I mean, stop. Forget you, Marvel. Um, we're gonna do it our way. They should make the TV show a continuation of Far From Home.
But that's exactly what I'm suggesting that Marvel do.
Yeah,
Just be total.
yeah.
Well, I don't want to say what I was going to say, but just be total jerks about it. Let Sony do what they can do, and just keep on going with your Spider-Man story with the same actor. Because even though he's contracted to do 2 movies for Sony, Marvel can still contract him any way they want to. You know, and just hold back on all full-fledged Spider-Man movies until they get the rights back. But if Spider-Man of Sony has to compete with the Spider-Man of Marvel, I think a lot of fans will get a clear picture of exactly what's going on. Even though more fans are going to be internet savvy now, we already know the difference. But even the casual fan will start to figure out stuff a lot more. They're gonna be like, "No, I like this. I like this MCU version of Spider-Man. I'm gonna just stick with that one." And they ain't gonna worry about what Sony is doing at that point. And if that happens, I mean, the Sony gonna fall apart eventually, and then the rights gonna revert back to the Marvel Studios under Disney, and you can start this whole great storyline about how Peter is in hiding because they done revealed his identity, and you can keep it moving.
Mm.
That'd make a great television show. He can't be too involved in too big of events, like with all whatever they finna start doing in Phase 4. He can't take too much. He can't be involved too much, and it's easy to explain because he's still in hiding while you working out his whole court case and how to prove that it wasn't him that tried to do this and how he's not a. Because think about it, with Tony's equipment, he's a threat to the entire world based on their viewpoint that what he was doing. So it'll
Just
be
Hmm.
interesting to prove that he's not a criminal or whatever the case is. And you could just do that while we waiting on Sony to fall apart.
Hmm.
So now you got your MCU Spider-Man competing with Sony's version of Spider-Man. Yeah, I like that idea. That's just me. And you got access to other heroes being a guest star on your TV show, access to everything that comes along with the MCU versus just what you got out of Homecoming or Far From Home. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't even get Aunt May. Like you know what I'm saying? If if they got to recast Aunt May, because how you gonna do Spider-Man without Aunt May? So now you got Sony with this other actress as Aunt May, but then you got the the MCU version with Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. It's gonna tell it all.
Mm.
So now if I got to pick between the two, what am I gonna do? I'm going with
Yeah,
the MCU version. I'm cool.
ultimately, I think this is a chess game that they're playing, and I think with the way we're headed is Sony's going to be bought out. I think maybe Marvel may have stoked a fire that can't be put out, but ultimately Sony's not going to be able to hold on to this character, this intellectual property, and poof, rights revert.
And honestly, at this point in time, I think it would have been smarter on Sony to do a deal, because if they at least did a deal with Marvel, anybody that's employed through Sony, when your company is bought up, you see what I'm saying? You don't have the whatever projects you have for Spider-Man are now dead in the water anyway. But if you at least was working with the folks of Marvel, you could probably get folded over into being employed by Marvel. You see what I'm saying? Because Sony ain't gonna need you no more. They ain't gonna exist. And whoever's gonna take them over, if let's say it is Apple, I mean, Apple don't really need you at that point. You might as well say what you was already doing. Well, I already work on the Spider-Man movie. If Marvel would take me, I just ride with them. And now you at least got a job versus no
Yeah.
job, because now Apple done bought you. What you gonna do at that point?
So basically, Sony gonna end up being the guys that said, "Oh, I should have took that first deal."
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
what
see
I'm
no way
saying.
around it.
Mm. So on a scale of 1 to 10, the likelihood that Spider-Man will end up back in the MCU anyway.
I'm saying a 10.
I think it's a 10. We don't know exactly when, but I see it as a 10.
I say 2 years.
Because the only way,
Max.
and that might be a legitimate guess, but the only way Sony really comes out of this, if they start having enough success that they are able to deal with all the problems of their movie division. And where are they going to get that success from? Where is this new thing going to happen where they're going to get this immediate success that they can save their movie division?
Yeah, I will say this: all Sony has to do is make a Spider-Man film or make some kind of film within the Spider-Verse that knocks it out of the park. And I don't think lightning is going to strike twice, because I think their last chance was Into the Spider-Verse, and Into the Spider-Verse was a great film. Some would even argue that Into the Spider-Verse is the greatest Spider-Man film ever.
Yeah, but it's not live action, and based on what I've seen, it didn't even make $500 million. It was a great movie, but it wasn't seen the way it would have needed to be seen to save their studio. And with the fact that Far From Home just cleared $1 billion, and we still talking about Sony being bought, they need a lot of money to stay afloat.
Yeah,
Because
they do.
yeah, because if $1 billion won't solve your problems, you got real problems.
Yeah, real problem. You said it right. All right, fellas. Well, I got to get out. I got daddy duties to do. But hey, this is Donnie and Mason. I am out of here. 1/3 of the habitual line steps. Fellas, I appreciate the conversation as always. But yeah, I'm about to go take care of daddy stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell
All
Junior
right. All right. All right. Do your thing. Always good to have you. See you on the next go round. Well, I think it's probably about time to bring this one to a close anyway. Unless you got something else, Roger.
I think what I just said needs to be thought about. If $1 billion couldn't save you, your problem may be a little bit big for you to handle. You know what I mean? A little bit too big for you to handle.
Well, okay then. Yes, I think we've well established that we are huge fans of the MCU and what they're doing, and yes, we thank them for entertaining us for those. What is it, 23 some odd films,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 23
and
wonderful films of it to enjoy. Go ahead.
yeah, and we look forward to them entertaining us, intertwining the streaming TV shows with the movies to get into an even deeper universe. So, for any other studios that want to start a connected universe of films, I suggest that they take notes from the MCU. But
Yeah.
as far as Spider Man, and what I truly feel is all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe character. I mean, well, all of the Marvel comic book characters need to be with the MCU. There may be somebody out there that might have a better vision for how a comic book film and a Marvel film should be, but I hope those guys find their way to the MCU. That's all I gotta say.
Well, I actually am very comforted by the fact that has been Kevin Feige's vision from the beginning of even Marvel Studios being created and making their own movie. His vision has been to get all the characters back, and so far, it looks like he's been doing a pretty good job with
Mm.
whatever influence he
Oh
had.
yeah,
I'm not saying he did it all because some of that stuff is above his pay grade, but whatever his influence is, he seems to be doing a pretty good job to me.
yeah. Well, every great company has a great guy at the helm. Who's responsible for the direction of its success. Kevin Feige. Now he didn't do it alone, but I mean he's very very instrumental. So let's just hope for the best in this whole MCU Spidey thing. Like I said, I think Spidey's gonna end up back in the MCU. I just don't see any other place for him at this point. I mean, especially after coming off a mediocre to bad Spider-Man run in Sony,
Mhm.
the MCU and Kevin Feige has worked wonders for the character.
I,
And go ahead, go
no,
ahead, Roger.
I was just saying absolutely, and I'm just gonna throw it out there into the stratosphere so in case one of the employees hear it. I don't think a competing TV show would be a bad idea at this point, especially since y'all got to work out the fact that Spidey is wanted by everybody now. Peter Parker's a wanted man. So, but go ahead.
But see, here's the thing: when you're dealing with Disney Plus, you're dealing with a big budget, a much bigger budget. So the TV shows are going to have as great a quality as the films.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not. They maybe won't put as much into the vision of the film, but they definitely have the financial power to do so, to do anything they want. So Disney Plus and the slate of Marvel shows that they have is going to do extremely well as it intertwines with the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh yeah, and then
Absolutely.
so yes, I am looking forward to what Kevin Feige and the MCU is going to do with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and especially Doctor Doom. What we mentioned earlier in the program is when you have something presented, and then when you have the MCU presented, is a great thing. Now, um, the first Fantastic Four pretty much introduced the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom to the big screen, and I would always say from the Julian McMahon version of Doctor Doom, which was in the first, Doctor Doom with Chris Evans as the Human Torch, Michael Chiklis as the Thing,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Jessica Alba as the Invisible Girl, and Iron Grifudo as the Mr. Fantastic. I would still say that I would still felt kind of cheated by that version of Doctor Doom. I didn't feel like that was the Doctor Doom that was needed to make make it wasn't fair to the legacy of Doctor Doom, the legacy that he carved out in the comic books. So the MCU, I'm pretty confident, is going to pull off the Doctor Doom that I've been craving to see.
Mm-hmm. I,
Like there's even a rumor that Doctor Doom might be the next big bad in the MCU. Um, I would see that more so going to Galactus, but it is a possibility based on what Doctor Doom has pulled off in the comic books.
I'm gonna tell you this though. Don't hope for Doctor Doom to be first at all, because based on all the background stuff I've seen with Marvel, when they start putting stuff together, the first thing they sit down and say is what happened we've seen already. So, and you've had two versions of Doctor Doom, so I wouldn't imagine him being a beginning point. I mean, because of the origin purposes, there may be like that somehow he'll be involved, but I don't think he'll be the first big baddie because Marvel just
I don't I don't I think if he's going to be a villain, I think that he'll probably have a position like Loki had in the last series of Marvel films,
yeah,
but it's not going to be like something like he's going to transition into a good guy. No, Doctor Doom is going to stay Doctor Doom. He's going
right.
to be one of the villains because as far as the last phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they had a villain problem for a while, and I'll just name a couple of disappointments: Whiplash and Malekith. Ironically, they come from like sequel films, like second films of series. Like Whiplash
Mhm.
was Iron Man 2, and Malekith was Thor 2: The Dark World. They were very disappointing because and that's for a lot of reasons. Like they tried to with Mickey Rourke's character, they tried to cross over Whiplash and Crimson Dynamo, and really didn't pull off either. If you ask me,
Mhm.
Malekith, I don't know much about Malekith the Dark Elf, but I just know that the Thor 2: The Dark World could not have justified Malekith. Now, Thor 2: The Dark World did have a tight little fight. I think the final fight between Malekith and Thor was pretty good,
Yeah.
but but it just still though, it just like Malekith wasn't enough to solve the villain problem. So join us pretty soon on the Black Dimension, where we're going to have a discussion about the villains in the past phases of the MCU, and we're going to go from good, bad, worse, um, the ones they stumbled on, the ones that they pulled off perfectly. And I gotta say, my two top villains in the MCU right now is Killmonger and Thanos. The whatever future villains they have is going to have to me going to have to top those two villains right there. But that's another
Absolutely.
Black Dimensions discussion.
Okay. Well, let me ask you one question before we head out. Um, at this point, especially when the streaming service start, do you the three movies a year that Marvel's been doing? Because after that first Black Panther, when they dropped that in February for Black folks, you know what? Appreciate that Marvels for dropping it in February. That was a good look. But now they're looking at dropping movies is like March, uh, late April or early May, and then the July movie. When they were doing it, where it was like a May movie, a July movie, then a November movie. You in the future, do you want your movies, all three movies, more together or more spread apart throughout the year?
I would say that you could probably afford to spread them apart, and that would probably be based on the fact that you got the TV shows now intertwining with
Mm.
the movies. So you're talking about, if you're able to pull that off correctly, you're talking about year-round Marvel.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Wouldn't that be awesome? But you know
Awesome.
what? The story's got to be good.
Yeah, yeah. I said, wouldn't that be awesome? Awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I know what you said. Awesome. But yeah. But you just gotta just like the challenge to Sony. All you gotta do is make a good Spider Verse film. You may be able to survive, but it's highly unlikely. But anyway, we're probably just about to end it here. Does anything else, Roger, before we sign out of this?
I was just about to say, let me get my goodbye. So appreciate y'all, everyone who watches live or on the playback. Uh, Definitely like and subscribe if you just happen to come across the channel, and we'll make sure we get nothing but good content out to you.
Oh yeah. So, for on behalf of Donnie, this is Kev, and that was Roger. This is the Black Dimension. Um, and like you said, subscribe to our channel, and we'll continue to bring you great content. Peace.
All right, Kev. I think that was